Merkel Media.
Another dark figure stood up to my right, but this time I could make out much more detail. Red eyes, spike-like things coming from the shoulders, and this thing was huge.
This was all circulating around the base that a giant had been killed, but no one was supposed to talk about it.
I saw 3 long, bony fingers reach up underneath the door, curl up to grab it, and then disappear.
When he came over to me, dude, he slithered over to me.
And this giant comes out of the cave, and they're all frozen. And he starts running and firing at this giant. Well, the giant moves. He's got a spear in one hand, and he's running really fast and spears Dan and holds him up like this. Somebody yells, shoot him in the face, shoot him in the face. They basically decapitate him.
Got closer. When he got about 15 yards away from me, I raised that 12 gauge and I blowed his head off.
I feel something pulling at my leg, and I look over and there are 2 small gray entities pulling at me. And they're literally, I'm getting pulled off the bed.
I reached my hand into this bush and I touched air. Couldn't breathe and I couldn't move because I know I'm seeing a monster.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show, everybody. You're listening to The Confessionals. I am your host, Tony Merkel. Thank you for being here. If you've had an encounter or a story you'd like to share with me on the show, go ahead and shoot me an email. My email address is theconfessionals@theconfessionalspodcast.com. That's theconfessionals@theconfessionalspodcast.com. Or go to the website, theconfessionalspodcast.com, hit the contact section, and you can reach me that way as well. Either way works for me. Just get a hold of me. If you want more shows on a weekly basis, we offer a bonus show every Thursday on the website and the app for app listening for member episodes. If you haven't heard me say it before, I'll say it now. You can listen to member episodes on an app. Once you sign up, you'll get an email on how to register for the app. So if that interests you, go to theconfessionalspodcast.com, hit the join button, and become a member today. Also, if you want friends, head on over to preparewiththeconfessionals.com. That's preparewiththeconfessionals.com. Listen, I went to the grocery store and they were straight up out of chicken this week. I'm not kidding you. I don't know if it was just my store or if it's a problem everywhere, but I'm telling you, they were out of chicken. Crazy stuff. Be prepared. If there's a food shortage coming your way or any kind of emergency, you want to make sure you can take care of you and your family. So go to preparewiththeconfessionals.com. Get yourself emergency supply food and survival gear that will last up to 25 years for you right there at preparewiththeconfessionals.com. Now, listen, before we get into anything else, I just want to give a quick shout out to my sister Tanya and her now fiance Alex. This past week, I was telling people we were going away on vacation to kind of get away and stuff, which was true. We did go on a, getaway trip, but the whole family came because Alex was planning on proposing to my sister Tanya, and he did. She said yes. They're getting married. I'm very happy. My sister is with a great guy, Alex. Shout out to those two. They're awesome. I'm very happy for them. And I just wanted to let them know because I know they and other people listen to the show. Now, I want to let you guys also know we have something new for the Confessionals. New P.O. Box. Many people over the years have asked me to give them my home address, and I've been just sending out my home address, and it's becoming more and more frequent recently. And I started thinking, you know what? I think I need a P.O. box and stop being cheap, Tony. Just go ahead and bite the bullet and get yourself a P.O. box. So that's what I did, and I'm announcing it right here for you. If you want to get the P.O. box, I'll put it on the website as well. But right now, if you want to write it down, if you got something you want to give me and send me, that's fine. Use the P.O. box now. 88 Glocker Way, Pottstown, Pennsylvania, 19465. And the suite number is STE 361. That's Suite 361. Once again, it's 88 Glocker Way, GLOCKER, 888 Glocker Way, Pottstown, Pennsylvania, 19465, Suite 361. So if you guys got something you want to share with me, that's fine. Send it to the P.O. box. And I'd be happy to share it on Instagram, just like I'm going to be sharing today the Bigfoot that I got recently from a listener, and that was the first person to ever use the P.O. box. So shout out to Jonathan. Thank you very much for the Bigfoot. I am putting it on my shelf in my office, and it will make some frequent appearances on video when I do video stuff on YouTube right here in the studio. So thank you very much for that to Jonathan and the Bigfoot. Awesome stuff. Thank you very much. And also just be sure to go to the YouTube and hit subscribe to the Confessionals YouTube channel. I am actually working on producing the next episode of Legion of Legends. I'm hoping to have it done this week or next week. It's going to be a fun one. I know you guys are going to love it. So if you don't want to miss it, just subscribe to the Confessionals YouTube channel, because that's where we're posting Legion of Legends. There will be a separate playlist on that channel for Legion of Legends for you guys to enjoy all the content that I make with Legion of Legends. Now, this week, we have Jimmy coming on the show, and Jimmy is somebody that I've been wanting to talk to for a while. I was really glad I was able to connect with him because he goes into great detail. Listen, friends, I'm telling you right now, this is something that you may not want your kids listening to. Sometimes people listen with their little kids and stuff. This may not be one of those episodes you want your kids to listen to. If you haven't noticed by the title of the episode, Jimmy goes into extensive details as to how, when, where he started having sexual encounters with demonic entities. And then we get into astral projection and things like that. But this is a very graphic episode. So I just want to let you know up front, don't let your kids listen to this, but also do what you want. I'm not here to tell you how to live. Let's get to Jimmy right now. All right, today we got Jimmy on the show. Jimmy, how you doing, man?
Doing well, Tony.
Nice, man. So, Jimmy, man, you have some experience here, and I think we're going to kind of touch on your experiences, maybe your profession a little bit, because I know you're in law enforcement. But first of all, we want to knock out what we're here to talk about. And you've had some, I guess we can call it paranormal. Some people don't like calling it paranormal, but I'll just call it paranormal. It's shadow people and sleep paralysis. I know sometimes sleep paralysis, people say it's all scientific, and I understand that. But for general purposes, you got paranormal experiences, and we're going to start off with the shadow people. I know when you were younger, you had these experiences where they were coming to visit you. So how'd this all start out for you? I mean, how old were you? Where were you? How'd you realize what was going on?
Well, I want to say to the best of my memory, I was 12 or 13, so this was probably around 2005. First, it started out weird. I slept. First off, we lived in a really old house in the town I grew up in. It was one of 3 houses that had a basement. And actually, the previous owner was murdered inside of the house. So we can get to that later. But it started out where I'd be sleeping, and my bedroom was weird. It was in the very center of the house. It had no doors on it. It was basically what was meant to be probably a computer room, and it had a door there that led to the basement. The first experience I had was, it wasn't too intense, but, I was only 12 or 13 at the time, so it shook me pretty good. I would remember laying down, thinking I was dreaming. I felt something grab. I think it was my right ankle and pulled me off the bed. And, I'd wake up and be halfway off the bed. That's pretty much how it started. As far as the visitations, this was before I ever had any kind of sexual encounters. I could, all right. Never shared this in great detail, so
yeah, and I understand it can be a little uncomfortable. You ripped the Band-Aid off with that. You're just like, this is before I had the sexual encounters, and everybody's like, wait, you had sexual encounters?
Oh, yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, so
it just kind of came out like vomit.
It's fine, man. It's fine. Take your time and go in the order that you want to go in, and we'll discuss as we go.
Right. All right. So later on, I'd say I was the same age. I would this is being awake. I would start to see things in my house. Being in the living room, I remember this like it was yesterday. I was laying on the love seat. I think I was watching an episode of Jeopardy, at the corner of my eye. It wasn't a shadow person per se, but it was a person. It was a figure. And I described this figure to my mother later, having a red flannel shirt and overalls. White male. I don't know. He was 6'2", 6'3", he's a very tall guy. And I remember describing this to my mother a couple of days later, and she said, "That is the man that used to live here." You described him to a T. And she showed me a picture of him later that day, and it kind of freaked me out because I was like, "Ooh, I just saw that guy." and I've always heard stories how he was murdered, and I just chucked it up as I'm a young kid, and they were just trying to scare me or something like that. But I didn't know it was true until I told her that I saw him.
Do you know how he was murdered?
I don't. I'm sorry. I just heard something really weird outside of my window.
I heard that too. It sounded weird. It was like,
what is?
You got abduction going on or something?
I don't know. I don't see any bright lights. Okay, I don't see anything. I'm on edge, because of.
Yeah, I can
everything.
understand. Yeah.
Anyways, I don't know how he was murdered. I always heard he was somewhere along of a home invasion and he was shot. Other than that, I never really heard anything else about that.
Before we go any further, do you think that he was the one pulling you off the bed?
It's hard to say because the pulling me off the bed part, I don't remember seeing anything. I remember feeling a presence, and it felt dark, towering over me. I remember, like I said, I thought I was in a dream, and I remember I had a little nightlight in that room at the time because I'd never been a big fan of the dark. Now it doesn't bother me so much. I do generally fall asleep with the TV on now. I remember the room getting very dark, feeling grabbing on my. It was weird. It was right on my right ankle, and it pulled me off, and I woke up halfway off the bed. I didn't see anything that night. I just kind of felt a presence.
Yeah, because I asked that because, just generally speaking, if somebody has a house, there's a home invasion, they get shot and killed, and their spirit is haunting the place, you would think that anybody who moves to that house, that spirit might consider them another invader and would act aggressively towards the person. And that's why I was trying to see what your thoughts were on if you thought it was him or not.
Right. I've never thought of it that way, but that makes complete sense.
It does to me too, but I'm a truck driver. I don't know.
Hey, I'm just a cop. I don't know either.
Yeah. We're just having a conversation. So go ahead. Continue, man.
Let's see. I think the first actual physical encounter with these shadow people, I fell asleep on the couch, and I found these encounters to be more frequent when I fell asleep somewhere other than my bed. So I believe the first time, I'm trying to think, it could have been in my bed. I want to say it was on the couch in the living room, and I fell asleep one night watching TV. I know I was lying on my back, looking straight up at the ceiling. I woke up, and I just see this thing over me. It holds its hand over my mouth. It climbs on top of me, straddling me, and basically had sex with the thing is the best way I can describe it, because not knowing what that was back then and knowing what that feels like now, of course, I can contribute that and compare that. Wow, that probably sounded very weird.
Well, I'll tell you what, Jimmy, you're not the first person that came on the show and said such things, so you're not alone in this. I'll tell you that much. Now, could you tell what kind of entity this was, as far as was it more feminine or masculine?
It definitely was more feminine. I remember I could actually reach up and grab her breast. And it felt great, and I was young, and I was like, I've never felt this feeling before. I want to feel it again, So as time went on, I could lie down, no matter where it was. Close my eyes, and I would say, "Come visit me, come see me," something along that, and it would come. Generally, I would have to have my eyes closed and be thinking really, really hard about it, and I would open my eyes. There it would be above me again, and eventually it got to the point where I could be a little more controlling in the situation. Meaning, this thing wasn't just on top of me holding its hand over my mouth. I could, get on top of it.
Okay, so was this all right? So when it for instance, when it put its hand over your mouth the first time, could you feel the hand as if it was a flesh and blood hand?
Yes, it felt warm. Definitely felt pressure on my face. It definitely felt like somebody else was there, like it wasn't just a figure, but I could never make out a face. But it had a feminine figure, flowing hair, which was black, matching the figure color. But it definitely felt real, like it was an actual another person there, and not just a figment of my imagination or something like that, or a dream, because I was very much awake when this happened.
Yeah, and I mean, it happening more than one time after a while, especially if you're trying to summon it, like after a while, it's there shouldn't be any doubt in your mind that it's happening unless you're literally you belong in a mental institution. You're just crazy, So, all right, how old were you when this first happened? Do you remember? I think you mentioned it. You were a teenager or something?
Yeah, I was 12 or 13. That's just a guesstimation, because that's about the time we moved into the house, and about 2005. So I'd say it was 12 or 13, depending on what month it was.
Okay, so 12 or 13. I mean, right around that, it's been a while for me, but right around that age, I think, is when kids start hitting puberty. And so it's not like something that your body couldn't have reacted to. This was something that your body probably was testosterone pumping, definitely ready to rock and roll, So,
oh yeah. Once I felt after that first time, I was like, that was great. But I mean, I was scared to death the first time, and I never told my mother about it. Like I never mentioned this to her. Like I did mention, like I mentioned seeing the previous owner's ghost or figure, whatever it was. I never mentioned this to anybody. In fact, I never shared this story with anybody until probably 6 months ago.
And was that with your girlfriend?
It was with her first, and I just kind of said, "Let me tell you something." We were kind of sharing weird stories about each other's lives. I said, "Oh, you think that's crazy? Wait till you hear this." And I was like, "Oh, it's over after this. There's no way." But she was understanding. She didn't think I was crazy. She shared some experiences of her own with me, so she didn't run away. So that's the important part.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, if she's sticking with you through that story, then I would say she's a keeper, man. So,
she definitely is.
Because I can understand. I mean, the idea of being scared to tell, especially a loved one, that experience, because you don't know how they're going to react. I would imagine it's similar to the idea of a teenager who has sex with their teacher. You don't want to tell anybody because you don't want to get in trouble, but also like years down the road, you probably don't want to be that guy, where you're telling people, yeah, when I was a kid, I had sex with my teacher, especially if you're a female. If you're a girl that wound up having sex with a male teacher, I'm imagining it probably can be pretty embarrassing in a sense. And so you're probably pretty hesitant to talk to people about that stuff. And I imagine when it comes to having sex with an entity, I imagine it's probably around the same grounds. It's like, you don't know how people are going to react to that. It's kind of, I don't know. It's kind of taboo,
Right. And I've heard about these entities attaching to somebody upon an interaction like that. And growing up in my later teens, early 20s, I went through a really bad addiction with pornography. And thinking back, I'm not so I'm not convinced, not convinced, shall I say, that, it wasn't just a shadow figure. It could have been a demon of some sort putting those lustful thoughts and desires inside of me. Because before then, I had no experience with anything like that. I never watched anything. And it seems like very shortly after that is when I started experimenting with stuff like that.
Well, it makes sense. It makes sense because the younger, when you get into that kind of stuff at a young age, you constantly need to up the ante. And that's with any addiction. And it's the same with the pornography addiction. When you get addicted to something like that, you constantly keep getting deeper and deeper into it. You get into more funky stuff. And so if your first introduction is straight up sex with a demon, then, you're probably on a psychological level looking to get that next high, which is going to need to be a little bit better than the one you just had. And that's probably pretty hard to top, especially at 13.
Yeah. And I recently conquered that addiction with the help of my girlfriend. She's been my rock. If I didn't have her right now, I don't know where I'd be as far as my mental state. I just don't know what I would do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's good that you have somebody in your corner like that. I mean, I think that's the goal for anybody who's looking for a relationship with other people, that when you're with that person, you're better off than you were without them. And if you have that match where, she accepts you for who you are, she wants to see you become better and is willing to help you through things. I mean, I don't know what more you could ask for in a relationship. I mean, that's pretty much a jackpot.
That's right. That's how I feel. That's how I feel every day.
So how many times did this go on for you? I mean, did it happen so often that you really don't have track as far as time goes?
It would happen as many times as I wanted it to happen. Like I said, after that first time, I could basically summon it by saying, come see me, come visit me.
That does sound like an attachment. I know you mentioned that earlier. That does sound like an attachment.
Yeah, and I know I listened to some stuff on demons and whatnot, and I know that famous phrase, let me in, which I never heard that. I never heard anything in my head as far as something trying to lead me somewhere or something trying to convince me to, let them in. Like I said, it basically, after that first time, it would happen anytime I wanted it to until I got older. When I got older, I lost the ability to, and believe me, I tried, because that's all I knew. As far as that kind of feeling and that kind of attachment.
What do you think that was? Just maturity?
I don't know. I think it manifested into something else as I got older.
Okay, so maybe like the addiction to pornography then.
Right. And then the eventual sleep paralysis.
Okay, let's take a second and talk about a new sponsor for today's show, which is Raycon earbuds. Listen, friends, Raycon earbuds are pushing the limits, and if you want high premium quality in your ears, you want that Raycon quality in your ears. A lot of people have been messaging me saying that last week's show with Joel, they heard a lot of different voices and growling on that episode, especially the overtime episode. And maybe the Raycon earbuds will help you figure out what is being said and what those growls mean. But one thing's for sure, if you're going to hear things in the audio as far as EVPs go, you need a good set of earbuds, and Raycon will offer that to you. They come with a bunch of different gel tips to help fit your ear, and even the comfort is another thing that a lot of people complain about with earbuds, but Raycon actually fits in your ear. They don't hang out of your ear, so you don't have to worry about things knocking the earbud out of your ear. Like, I don't know, my daughter grabbing at my ear, grabbing at my face, knocking earbuds out, because that's happening a lot into the toilet. That sucks. Anyways, you don't have to worry about that with Raycon because they actually sit in your ear. You can shake your head. They're not going to come out. They're great for working out. And guess what? They're half the price of premium audio brands, but they sound just as good. And Raycon is offering a 45-day happiness guarantee, so you really can't lose on this deal. Give them a try. Create your own soundtrack with Raycon. Right now, the Confessionals listeners can get 15% off their Raycon order at buyraycon.com/confessionals. That's buyraycon.com/confessionals to save 15% on Raycons. buyraycon.com/confessionals. Now, like I said to you before we started the interview, I might ask a question, and just if the question is, off bounds, just let me know. But, it's like I said, we've had people on the show that talked about their experiences like this. And I understand it's sensitive, but at the same time, there's questions to be asked here. Like when you said that, I guess after a while, you were able to take more control. One, I think that is probably more it allowing you to take control. But when you used a specific example of you being on top, was it because I mean, obviously, you have sex with humans now. And so,
Yes.
So was it like when you're taking that control, are you really kind of like taking control as if you were taking control of a physical body? I know you said that the hand felt warm and flesh-like, but I mean, when I'm thinking, when you're having sex with somebody and you're on top and you're kind of taking control there, I mean, there's a lot of physical contact, a lot of body to body kind of thing. Was it just that real?
Very much so. Like I always wondered if somebody would have woken up inside the house and walked in when this was happening to me. I always wondered if they would just find me floating a little bit and not be able to see what I see, or would they see it too? That never happened, but it felt incredibly real. There was somebody there that I was interacting with on a sexual level. It felt real. Like I said, I hadn't had sex at the time. I was 13, 12 years old, and finding out what that felt like later on in life, I could go back and say, that is what happened, without a doubt. And this is before any exposure to pornography of any kind. I wouldn't say I was growing up in a religious house. We definitely were religious. I still am. But if we wanted that exposure, we could have got it. Put it that way.
Yeah. So, I mean, the reason why I asked that is because when my first introduction to people having sex with entities, ghosts, demons, whatever you want to call it, wasn't from somebody telling me anything. It was me watching Ghostbusters. And if you've seen the movie, Dan Aykroyd has sex with a ghost. And it's like a short scene, but you see his pants come unzip and then his eyes roll in the back of his head. And when I was a kid when I saw that. And now as an adult, I've heard interviews with Dan Aykroyd. I think it's probably Joe Rogan's podcast. And Dan Aykroyd recalled actually having sex with an entity and that attributing to that scene in Ghostbusters. Like he had sex with some kind of entity, and because he had sex with an entity, he put it in the movie. And so, like, for me, watching it on TV, the way his reaction was on the movie, even though it was comedic and stuff, I think in the back of his mind, he was probably relaying something that he had experienced with knowing that he did and how his body really reacted to it. Does that make sense? Because way he makes it look on the movie is that like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I'm thinking back now, I'm thinking probably because when he did have sex with whatever it was, it probably felt incredible and real.
That's it. I had no idea. I actually hadn't seen the original Ghostbusters movies until I was much older, so I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, it's I think it was the original Ghostbuster movie that scene was in, but yeah, it's pretty trippy. And these experiences, aren't as uncommon as you would think, and that's why they have names for these things. I mean, people who want to attribute it to demonic experiences, they would call it a succubus or a succubus or no, succubus, incubus or succubus, and the incubus is typically a female, or no, is it a male? Now I'm trying to remember. I think the succubus is the female entity going after a male, and I think the incubus is I don't remember now. I'm lost. But it's been a while since I looked at the definitions of an incubus and a succubus. We'll just call them syncubuses. But I mean, there's names for them, you know, and it's not relatively new or anything. These are ancient names of these demonic entities that come and visit people and have sexual interactions with them. When you look back at it, not now, but like when you first started looking back at it, especially like say the first time you had sex with somebody and you're like, dang, what I've experienced as a kid growing up, that really was sex. Did it take you a while to kind of grasp that and be like, it's not normal. Like what I experienced isn't something that normal people experience, or did you kind of think that was kind of the norm for most people?
I definitely, at the time that it was happening, thought it was not normal, which is why I never told anybody. I didn't make that connection as far as it being sexual right away, because like I said, eventually it stopped occurring. I don't know what it was. It all came back to me one day. I wasn't even having sex. I didn't get done having sex. It just came back to me, and I just remembered everything vividly. I could remember, what room I was laying in, not necessarily exact day or year. I know, like I said, I was around 11 or 12. Or I'm sorry, 12 or 13. And it just came. It just came back to me. It's hard to explain. It's kind of like a repressed memory. Like whatever it was visiting me wanted me to forget, and then didn't want me to remember until a certain time. I don't know. I'm new to this.
Me too. It can be hard to recall all the details of things that happened in our childhood, and I certainly can understand that. I honestly, obviously, we all lived our childhoods. We all lived the same amount of time. If you're 25 years old, you've had 25 years of experience. But I really don't remember a ton from my childhood. And I don't know if it's me blocking things out or if it's, just me being stupid. But I don't remember a ton from my childhood. And so I understand, things coming back later on and not really remembering up to a certain point. But what you just said with the idea of it not wanting you to remember, do you lean that direction?
I do more than other directions, because I can't think of another explanation for it, because I know it happened. These were not dreams. This was very real. I was very awake when these interactions happened. But I guess after they stopped and I didn't tell anybody about it, that it just went to the back of my head until something, I don't know what it was, just triggered it like a light flicking on. So I guess just me not sharing it with anybody for so long, on top of the occurrences stopping for many, many years, made me kind of not necessarily forget about it, but just it went to the back of my memory, if you will.
Yeah, I can understand that. And you said this was pretty much from like 12 to 13 to what, later teens, it kind of stopped?
Yes. Okay,
so we're talking of just a few year period and stuff. Yeah, man, I don't know, but it definitely is something that I don't think I'd want to live through, to be honest with you. You make it sound pretty cool, but I mean...
That's my coping mechanism.
Right. No, I understand. But I mean, when you're a kid and stuff and you're kind of digging it, I mean, I guess I understand it. I mean, it's all a new sensation and stuff, and you really don't know much better. But that first time it happened, I mean, were you scared at all? I mean, like all of a sudden something's on top of you covering your mouth, even though it felt good. Were you at the same time scared? Like, I mean, at 12, 13 years old, I mean, you've heard of ghosts, you've heard of people, haunted houses, things like that. I mean, did that cross your mind that this is your experience, some kind of ghostly haunting entity doing something that felt good?
I did. I was very scared. I remember my heart beating out of my chest. I could move my body. Like, if I wanted to, I could have gotten up and walked away. But I didn't. Nothing was holding me down at the time that I initially saw it. Like I said, I looked up and there it was. A female. When it was standing over me, I'll say this, it didn't appear to have a feminine appearance. It's when it got on top of me. Like it was pretty much just a blob when it was over me. And when it made contact with me, that's when it manifested even more into more detail as a feminine-like figure. I was terrified. And this wasn't a dream where, you'd pop up in a cold sweat and be like, I just woke up from a dream. That was wild. It was like, it was done. It went away. And I was lying there awake like I was before. Yeah,
and what you just said kind of, it leads me into my next question here. When the deed's done and all that, I mean, and I know this is going to sound funny, but I asked him the question, but I know it's kind of funny too. Like there wasn't any cuddling or anything after that. Did it just get up and walk away? Did it just disappear? How'd this whole experience end to where you're now done having sex and alone in your room?
It ended as quickly as it began. No cuddling. I'm a cuddler. I like to be the big spoon. But nothing like that. It didn't like get up, Bunny's on the counter and walked out the door, It was over as quickly as it began. Sometimes it wasn't that quick of an experience. It felt like it would last for hours, and I would experience, I guess you would call it lost time. I would know about what time I would lay down, whether it be in the bedroom, the living room, wherever I would lay down. And certain times, not all of them, but maybe one or two times felt like a really long period of time. And in reality, 10, 15 minutes might have went by.
Did you ever feel like you were in a different realm, a different reality, or even look around the room at the same time and be like, something like the room doesn't look the same? Did you ever feel like you were in a different location than where this started?
No, I was always where it started. Now, I will say this, my surroundings became, I guess my peripheral vision of my surroundings dimmed. They darkened where the TV might have been 10 feet away or whatever it was, but I couldn't see it. It was cut out of my vision. It was almost like if you see a composite drawing of like a scene of a movie and it's just got the room cut off. I don't know how to explain it. I was in the now. I was only aware and could see my immediate area. Anything out of my peripherals, I couldn't see. It was dark, and I could look up at the thing. Like I said, I couldn't make out a face or anything, or even eyes at that.
So I guess it's safe to say that you were zoned in.
I was in the zone.
Yeah, and I think that when it comes to this kind of stuff, I don't. The reason why I asked that question was because I personally don't feel it's outside the possibility of being taken into a different state of being during that experience. Whether it turns from what we understand as physical into more of a spiritual experience, or even to the more sci-fi end of things, that during the experience, your body gets taken into some kind of, let's just call it a parallel universe where this entity lives and exists on a normal frequent basis, like almost like it's taking you to its house, and that's why I wanted to ask you what the experience was there, because I wasn't sure, especially with the lost time idea.
Yeah, it was where I lay down. That's where it happened.
Okay. And as far as you know, nobody else knows about this other than your girlfriend.
Her and a coworker who is he's also had experiences of the paranormal, and I'll work a shift with them every now and then, and we'll get to talking about it for hours. Sometimes depends on how busy the night is.
All right. So was his experiences non-sexual?
Yeah, they were not sexual.
Okay. So I'm assuming that you didn't drop the sex bomb on the first conversation.
Oh no. I don't think I've ever shared that detail with him. I just told him I was visited by shadow people.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's what I mean, though. So as far as outside of your girlfriend, nobody knows about the sexual experiences, as far as you know.
Nobody but you and the listeners now.
And that's why we changed your name to Jimmy.
I like it.
Yeah. But seriously, though, I mean, it's one of those things where I think that it's definitely a sensitive topic. And, I think that there's a lot of people out there that do have these experiences and they just refuse to talk about it. And it kind of goes along the lines of other sexuality topics of conversation where people are hesitant to talk about, whether it's, that they were molested as a kid or, like I said before, the sex with a teacher thing. Like there's so many things, or pornography addiction. There's so many things when it comes to sex that people are hesitant to talk about because you're so vulnerable in that situation. I mean, it's not like me saying, yeah, tonight when I'm done talking to you, I'm going to go up and have sex with my wife. Like that's a normal thing. Like I'm married, she's my wife and we're whatever. But the idea of something outside of the quote unquote norm is something that I know people have a hard time coming out and just being open about. And I think it's, commendable that you're willing to at least come forward and talk about it. Now, what would you say to people that are listening to this and they are experiencing it and maybe they're fearful and maybe they're not doing it by choice as much as it being forced upon them? Would you have any advice for them or anything? I mean, maybe you don't, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask you to speak to people out there that maybe are having these experiences. That's
hard to say because I didn't tell anybody. Over time, like I said, the experiences stopped happening. Now, if somebody else is experiencing this and, it's maybe gone on for their entire lives, I don't know. Find somebody you trust more than anybody else that will keep your deepest, darkest secrets, because talking about it helps. It definitely helps. Even sharing that detail with my coworker, without the sexual part, it helped a little bit. But when I opened up to my girlfriend, that helped a lot. Definitely did.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, it's like, and I don't want to attribute it to this exactly, but it's the idea of being in a group setting like with AA or something like that, where you go and you sit down and you talk to people because it's a healing process. Just the fact that you're able to get something out is a healing process. And so I totally back up with what you said. I mean, if somebody's out there and they're experiencing this or anything really, if you can find somebody to get it off your chest that you can trust and be vulnerable with and talk to them about these things, I imagine it would be a great step towards healing in the end. Okay, our last sponsor of today's show, which is HelloFresh. And HelloFresh is extremely happy with the response they've been getting from the Confessionals listeners, and they wanted to return the favor with an awesome deal for you. We'll get to that in a second. Let me tell you, if you haven't heard me talk about it before, HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit company. They are freaking awesome. It is food and recipes delivered right to your door that you control. You don't have to worry about going out to the grocery store and picking out meals, meal prep, meal planning. All that stuff goes out the window with HelloFresh. They have an app that allows you to organize your delivery day so you can change that, your food preferences, the meal plan size, and it ships right to your door, ready to cook for you and your family. Listen, it's back to school season. Everybody's busy, and HelloFresh gets it, and they're there to help you plan out everything. And on top of that, I know a lot of people are into the whole fall harvest flavors and things like that. It's not my cup of tea, but I know there's a lot of ladies out there that wear those Han Solo type boots during the fall. They love the fall. They love the flavors that come out, like pumpkin spices and things like that. And HelloFresh has you covered with a pumpkin cinnamon roll and Friendsgiving ready sides, as well as a fresh, high quality ingredients that travel from the farm to your front door in less than a week. Listen, friends, go to HelloFresh.com/confessionals14 and use code confessionals14 for up to 14 free meals, including free shipping. That's HelloFresh.com/confessionals14 for up to 14 free meals, including free shipping. Go now. So, Jimmy, man, you have these sleep paralysis experiences as well that started happening later in life. So walk us into this stuff.
My first instance of sleep paralysis, I was in my 20s, early 20s. I want to say this is when the shadow figure came back into my life, because it wasn't just I'm waking up and I can't move. It was definitely that. It was me in bed on my back. Now, this is different from the original encounters where my scene around me was black and I couldn't see. I could clearly make out my room. Every little detail was there. It was my room. I was awake. My eyes were open. I could not move. So the first experience with it, I was lying in bed. I woke up, my heart just pounding. And my door opens, the bedroom door opens, and here's this figure from all those years ago. No interaction. It walks up to the foot of the bed and just stands there. It's a feminine figure like before. Only this time I can make it out without it being physically on me. And it's there. I close my eyes and I'm trying to tell myself to wake up, move, breathe, because eventually my breathing gets really hard to breathe, almost like I'm suffocating. And this happens in every instance when I experience sleep paralysis. And eventually I can just kind of wake myself up and breathe really deep, and I'll pop up and I'm there. And the figure's gone. The door was open, which was not open before, and that's my first my first experience with sleep paralysis.
So this is the first experience, and all that happens. In that moment, though, did you think back to your childhood and say this is the same entity, or was it later on that you started connecting dots, or do you even say it was the same entity, but it just looked like the same entity?
It was it. It was the same one. I just knew it right then and there. It didn't take me a month, a week, a year from that first experience of sleep paralysis. It was as soon as I came up from it, I knew it was that same. It was that same one.
So along that line, then, do you think that it came back and it did these things to you that weren't as pleasurable? And it's almost like from the outside looking in, and when you start trying to compare things, it's almost like when you were younger, it came to you and it gave you what you wanted. And then later on, it came to you and took what it wanted. Does that make sense?
It does. After that first experience, I started fighting depression, and it's gotten worse as I've gotten older. I've tried medications, meditation, talking to people, which helps. But it seems like after that first time, I don't know if it took something from me, but I've always been a relatively outgoing person, somebody that anybody could come to with anything, and I would be their ear or their shoulder, whichever one they needed. And after that sleep paralysis started happening, that changed. I became more of a loner, I guess. Very quiet in crowds. Not a conversation starter.
And I think that there's something like when people have experiences with, the paranormal or just things in general in life, things that have impacted them deeply, there's things that happen inside our heads psychologically. And I don't know if it's something that we can actually put to words, if it's something that, you know what I mean? Like if you're sitting here and you're telling this story, you may not even be able to put into words what the trigger was that turned that experience into a depression state where you became somebody that you never really were before. But it happens, and it's a shame that happens. But do you think that was the intent behind that visit, or do you think that was just a repercussion of what it did?
I think it could have been the intent. I've always heard the expression hurt, heal. I believe it hurt me that day, whatever it was. But I mean, it could all be in my head, it could just experiencing that could have just set my psyche spinning. But I think it's deeper than that, personally.
Okay. And now that wasn't a one and done thing. Like sleep paralysis continued, right? And
oh yeah.
And that sleep paralysis, is it always an entity visiting you, or is it sometimes you don't see the entity?
It's always, I don't always see it, but it's always a presence can be felt. I'm trying to put this into words, the feeling that I get. Sometimes when I wake up out of sleep paralysis and I start to drift away again into another deep sleep, I can feel myself slipping into paralysis. It's very strange. I don't know if it's normal, if anybody else has experienced that. But I could experience sleep paralysis, wake up from it, start to fall back asleep. That state of sleep where you're basically half asleep, but you're still aware of your surroundings?
Yeah, very much.
It's kind of like that, but I can feel myself slipping back into paralysis, and I try to fight it, but sometimes it's more successful than others. But more often than not, I'll slip back into a paralysis state where you just can't move, and I'll always feel something. I haven't only on one other occasion that I can remember right offhand that I've actually seen the figure again during sleep paralysis.
What was that instance?
This one was different. This one was several years after my first experience, in which I had more in between. I was living in an apartment, and I was asleep in bed, and let's go back to my first experience with the shadow figure, where I felt like I got pulled off the bed. Okay, so fast forward however many years later, I'm in my mid-20s at this point. It's very an evil presence I felt that night. I felt something pulling on the same side, my right side. I was sleeping on the right side of the bed, so my right side was on the edge. And every time I have sleep paralysis, I can basically feel my heart and hear my heart beating inside my head. And I'll get tingly all over, but I can't move, obviously. But this time, it was a very malevolent, if I said that right, figure. Another dark figure stood up to my right. But this time, I could make out much more detail. Red eyes. Spike-like things coming from the shoulders, and this thing was huge. Nothing like the feminine figure that visited me in the past. And it tried to drag me off the bed with force I've never felt before. I've never shared that before.
Okay, so let me talk about this. So you see an entity, it's huge, it has spikes on its shoulder, some kind of spikes on its shoulder. and it tries dragging you off the bed. Now, you're in sleep paralysis and it's trying to drag you off the bed. If it's not successful at doing that on a physical level, it would be surprising to me because, pretty much it's just pulling anybody off the bed. So do you think that it might have been trying to pull something else other than your physical body off the bed, like maybe a spiritual being? Like as in your spirit out of your body?
It very well could have been because the thing that struck me weird was it's my same side that got pulled off the bed so many years earlier. But this time after I snapped out, like the only thing I can move while in sleep paralysis are my eyes. And I'm looking over at the thing, I can feel it pulling at me. I'm not moving physically, but I definitely feel pressure. Something grabbing at me, pulling me. When I snap out of it, I'm able to get myself out of it. And I'll wake up, deep breathing, heart racing. I'm in the same position that I fell asleep in. So it didn't physically grab me, so I guess it could have been trying to reach within.
And the reason why I asked that is because, again, several times in this show, we've had people say such like things. And one that kind of sticks out to me is always, I always think it's episode 29. And it's in the intro of the show. The guy had says that there was two or three gray entities, and they were pulling him off the bed. But in that interview, that's just a clip of that part of the story. But in the interview, he talks about how, though it felt like they were pulling him off the bed, and he was in bed with his wife. He said at the same time, it felt like they were trying to pull something out of him, like his spirit out of him. And it woke his wife up. Now, he wasn't dealing with sleep paralysis, but it woke his wife up. And I if I remember correctly, he never told his wife what actually happened that night. But he relays a similar experience of feeling something trying to pull him off the bed, but simultaneously, he said it felt like something was trying to pull something out of his body. And that's where the spiritual realm comes in, and that kind of stuff. Let me ask you this: instead of me giving commentary on it, let me ask you: if you could choose between the two, would you rather just be pulled off the bed physically, and this is something that's very physical happening, or would you rather have the other way around, where something's being almost like pulled out of your body?
Physically, because if something can get a hold of my spirit, my soul, and pull it out and take it with it, I would much rather just have the ever-living crap was scared out of me anyway, but I would rather, wake up on the floor rather than not be there.
Now, I'm sitting here thinking about this, and I'm thinking, I wonder if somebody ever truly had that experience where they feel like something's being pulled out of their body, let's just call it the soul or the spirit, and it was successful. I wonder what that would look like on the other side of that successful attempt. Like, assuming that they live to talk about it, because what we're talking about sounds like almost like a grim reaper of some kind coming to collect your soul.
Oh, geez.
Not saying you, because you never. This side of the conversation you never detailed. So you said it felt like someone was pulling you off the bed. I brought up the whole spiritual aspect of things, but I just wonder if something is pulling a spirit or a soul out of somebody's body, and it was successful, or like your spirit and soul was taken out of the body, and somehow you survived it or whatever, and you lived to tell about it. I wonder what that would look like. Would it look like just an out-of-body experience? Or would it look like as soon as the soul and spirit leaves the body, it is instantaneously in another realm? And what did you see there then? And there's so many questions I would have,
That would definitely be interesting. I don't think I've ever had an out-of-body experience. There's one thing that comes in mind. When I was much, much younger, way before any of the shadow people visits, I remember, I don't know how old I was, 7 or 8 maybe. I falling asleep in my mother's bed, and this is hard to put into words. I believe this was a dream, though. Getting out of bed, walking around, the house being normal. The house is normal. Everything where it's supposed to be. Nothing out of the ordinary. Nothing to indicate that it was a dream. And I could remember walking back to the bedroom and seeing myself sleeping, and then I would crawl back in bed and wake up. That only happened once, but I'm not so unsure that was, just a dream.
Yeah, well, hopefully it is a dream, because if it's not a dream, it's definitely an out-of-body experience. I mean, honestly, if you feel like it was a dream, let's just call it a dream then,
Yeah, I feel that was a dream.
Yeah, me too. It was definitely a dream. We'll just say it.
I like that better.
Yeah. We're talking about Jimmy's dreams today, everybody. We're going to call this Dreams with Demons or something. I don't know. But
Sleeping with Demons.
Well, yeah, I already picked the show name out. We're going to call this Demon Sex. So
oh my goodness. Okay. That won't be hard to miss on the feed.
I mean, it's what it is, man. So, but listen, man, hopefully we were able to cover your experiences here in a good way. I mean, sometimes, and the way I interview people is it's very much dictated upon the individual. So sometimes people are very, I remember the one time I had somebody on the show who talked about what you talked about in the beginning of the show, and there were tears shed during the recording. It was something that he still, every time he talks about it, it breaks down and cries. Obviously, it's more of a, serious conversation, but I appreciate you allowing me to kind of just take the lighthearted approach to this, as well as, pulling out details. But to wrap this up, I do want to ask you a final question, and it has to do with your career. Now, you started out in I forget the term that you use, but we'll just call it the prison system. You worked within the prison system, and then you transitioned to becoming a police officer. So you've had a lot of experiences with law enforcement. Is there anything that sticks out of your mind as the story that you're like, I can't, you went home that night and said, I cannot believe that I experienced that today, or I cannot believe I made it home tonight?
There's been a couple of those. There were several instances working in the, you call it prison system. I think I call it corrections. The jail that I worked in, it wasn't an old jail, but there's trick of the eye. We worked 12-hour shifts, and I was on night shift at the time, and you think you'd catch something at the corner of your eye moving on one of the cameras. But as far as actual in the workplace experiences, there have been moments where we would go to apprehend a potentially dangerous suspect. One comes to mind. There was a shooting out in a neighborhood, and it happened right about shift change. So we had all the county units out there and all the city guys out there at the same time. And I remember I'd never been so close to taking a life until that moment. The guy comes out the back of the trailer. I got my sights right on his forehead, and the slack is pulled out of my trigger. And I'm just saying to myself, if this guy comes out, well, anything in his hands, it looks like a gun, because he was said to be armed and dangerous. Then I was going to have to squeeze the trigger. And I didn't have to, thank God. I've had one more time like that where I came very, very close to pulling the trigger on a guy. We dealt with them a lot in the past. Everybody's got that one that they deal with a lot. We got several of those, but this guy basically had a Bowie knife in the middle of the day. I think it was a Sunday. This was not too long ago. This was maybe 3 or 4 months ago. And he wouldn't listen to commands. He basically crossed a major highway. I had to drive my car, cut him off, almost had to hit the guy. I get out. He's got the knife in hand. I got my gun drawn. and I'm just yelling at this guy to put that knife down. And he had it in a position of aggression, you could say, where the tip of that knife was pointing toward me. And I told him if he takes one more step, I would have had to put him down.
Yeah, I can't imagine being in a situation like that, man. My wife, because I flirted with the idea of going to law enforcement in my early 20s, and I also flirted with the idea of going to military. And my wife always tells me, if there's anybody in the world that shouldn't be trained how to kill somebody, it should be you. So she's very glad that I didn't go down those roads and stuff, because not everybody's cut out for that, and there's a lot of discernment on that job that you need to have, and
split-second decisions. Split-second decisions.
Yeah,
and I'm a lighthearted, an easygoing guy and easy to get along with until that button gets pushed. And out of the 9 or so years that I've been in it and everything, there's only a couple of instances where somebody's just pushed that button and I went off on them. Of course, I apologized, after the fact. But
yeah,
sometimes you gotta hurt people's feelings to get them to listen to you.
Yeah, yes, that is so true. You mentioned about how sometimes you would see things out of the corner of your eyes in the prison, and I'll just say this about that comment: prisons, I've heard, can be very haunted, and I've talked to people who've had experiences in prisons. Like, for instance, I have a member episode. We called it the Death Row Goblin, episode 251. This guy, all he did is come on and talk about his haunting prison experiences. And I'm telling you, the prison, I don't know what it is. It must be, I don't know what it is, but these prisons can be very haunted, and I wouldn't want to work in them. So, Jimmy, man, I appreciate you coming on the show.
Oh, yeah, it was a pleasure being here, Tony.
Well, that's the show, everybody. I really hope you enjoyed it. And if you did enjoy it, please share the show with your friends. I don't care where or how you share the show. Just share the show if you enjoyed it, because that's the best thing you can do to help this show grow, is to share it with your friends. And just a reminder, we do have that P.O. box, which is suite number 361, STE 361, 88 Glocker Way, Pottstown, PA 19465. That's suite 361, 88 Glocker Way, Pottstown, Pennsylvania 19465. Send anything you want to that P.O. box and I will get it. Thank you very much, friends. And also subscribe to the YouTube channel. Look us up, The Confessionals on YouTube. We're going to be releasing another episode of Legion of Legends very soon, either this week or next week when I'm done producing it. It's going to be a fun one, so I know you guys are going to like it. Don't miss it. Subscribe to The Confessionals on YouTube. And until next week, friends, stay safe, take care, and remember, the truth will set you free, but first it'll piss you off. Bye. Awakened from the forest in the depths of the abyss, this creature is a paradigm of time lost and time itself. It fears no one. It adheres to no rule that man can create. It forges its own path, and yet its path remains hidden from the world. The sphere of its existence is beyond most comprehension, as it exudes its power quietly but transcendent. It needs no one's approval to exist, but yet its very existence is sought after by many. It watches. It learns. Adapts to the ever-changing environment around it, even as the environment is wrought with corruption. It battles the corruption only when pressed or for the protection of others like it. It is a mirage that few will ever understand. It's a cornucopia of knowledge from an era long past. It's free. It's Bigfoot.
My fantasies always consisted of making it big. My soul was nothing more than a bargaining chip. Marketing is what they tell you to do and what you're willing to give. LARPing to the fullest extent. I don't wait, I shoot first like Han on a Rodian. And people don't understand me like reading a Nokian. Stretched thin, like pulling an accordion. My heart ain't primordium. All these historians telling us lies, setting aside everything is medicalized. Politicians selling the ride. I bet 'em a die where the relevance lies. They dressing alike, reptilians. My resilience is brilliant. I'm here to lead the rebellion on Hellion, salient, alien with no melanin. I'm a Yeti, ain't hiding from Armageddon. Come and find me, I ain't even hiding. We ain't the same, I play no games. You do not know me, I don't hold back. I just speak facts, you cannot hold me. take me